This is the Gerber Flatiron, a good looking pocket cleaver with anodized aluminum grip, stainless steel frame lock, thumb hole opener and the 7Cr17Mov blade steel, which combo could easily make it a cool budget carry, but unfortunately it just ended up as a terrible thing. Hey everyone, welcome to Salvo EDC. Today I'll talk about my Gerber Flatiron, a knife that I was pretty excited about, but eventually it turned out as a huge disappointment. First and foremost, I bought this cleaver because I wanted to customize it. I made all kinds of plans to laser engrave this anodized aluminum, and I also wanted to acid etch the cleaver blade. I wanted to turn this inexpensive knife into a fun and mean looking one-of-a-kind piece. But eventually I dropped the idea because the Flatiron is just simply not a good candidate for the project. Looking at this Gerber, it loudly screams terrible build quality, the screws look wonky, and some places the coating was already gone fresh out of the box. Taken that the Flatiron retails between 50 and 70 bucks, I did not have particularly high standards for it, but I certainly expected it not to suck balls to this extent. I do not exaggerate when I'm telling you that this knife fails in every possible way a pocket knife can fail. So let's jump in and go through this dumpster fire together, starting with the extremely clunky, inconsistent action that I simply could not fix, even though I tried every trick up my sleeve. I'm a seasoned Spyderco fidget maniac, but I found opening this knife with the thumb hole nearly impossible, because the action is way too stiff. Slow rolling is the only thing I can manage, and any kind of flicking is simply not possible. However, opening is just a smaller problem, as I realized that closing is a much bigger issue. Despite being a so-called pocket cleaver, folding back this beefy blade is suspiciously difficult, and most of the times the Flatiron just jams wide open, and I need to grab it with my other hand to force it home. This is definitely not a general out-of-the-box stiffness, as I have already opened this thing over 100 times. I also poured a generous amount of pivot lube into it, but nothing has helped. But this low quality, soft steel hardware stripped after the slightest touch. I was aware of the fact that it might have been Loctited in the factory, so I also tried to heat it up and then disassemble, but despite all my efforts, nothing in my toolbox could get this pivot moving. After spending so much time with this issue, I think Gerber used some below-the-line quality hardware, then just forced all the components together in a very unprofessional way. The lack of precision would also explain why all the other screws look tilted. As a result, the knife is doomed to stick with this terrible action until the end of times, or until I throw it on the garbage where it belongs. Because the Gerber Flatiron is not only clunky, but also very unsafe. On top of all this, the detent is not working properly on this knife, which means that the only thing that keeps it from opening is the same jammed up crappy action that I was just complaining about. And let me know what you think in a comment, but this soft thud doesn't sound safe to me at all. But this is what I get every time I'm attempting to close this knife. As a quick reference, I'm showing you my Spyderco PM2 because these two pocket knives have the exact same dimensions, and if you listen to the PM2, you can hear how a working detent should sound like. And there is certainly a day and night difference between the Gerber Flatiron and the Spyderco PM2. And this is absolutely unacceptable from a folder that people put into their pockets and then forget about it, because it is the #1 telltale sign that at some point the knife will spontaneously open and butcher the ever-living shit out of the user. And if we are already fantasizing about putting this thing into our pockets, well, it is mission impossible, because the pocket clip is way too stiff for that, and I wear a lot of jeans and tech pants, but up to this point I was unable to slide fabric between the clip and the steel scale. And even if I go ahead and try to pry it loose with my finger, we can see that I make no effect besides hurting myself. So probably I'll need some tools to slightly bend the clip before it would start working, which is a bummer. For the first time looking at this clip, I thought it was great, as some amazing cold steel knives such as the detent designed by Andrew Demko also come with a very similar clip philosophy, and I love this approach because it has absolutely zero hotspots, but at the end of the day it doesn't matter, as if the pocket clip doesn't work, I won't use and carry the Flatiron, so I also won't feel its comfort. Speaking of comfort, probably the ergonomy of the grip is the only thing I don't have a problem with on this Gerber. Holding it in my hand, I discovered two possible ways to use this thing. I can grip it like normal, but I can also come closer to the blade and utilize this oversized finger choil to choke up for more precision and power. Sure, this way the knife has a shitty balance because of the steel construction, but I found it manageable with my large hands. Still, I did not use it too much because Gerber also did a terrible job with this cleaver blade. This made me so disappointed as I got the Flatiron to experience the steel, which is 7Cr17Mov. When I was looking at the spec sheet, the Gerber Flatiron genuinely hyped me up, as I have never had a pocket knife with 7Cr17. And I wanted to make up for it because I genuinely find all these different chemical compositions in the knife industry very exciting. Sure, I know that the Flatiron is not necessarily an expensive piece, but I think there is a beauty in delivering affordable products to the customers, because in my experience, inexpensive knives make the best day-to-day user blades, since we do not feel bad about actually beating them up. However, in this current configuration, I won't even bother with the Gerber Flatiron. It is genuinely that bad, and the factory executed on this geometry so poorly that I genuinely cannot draw conclusions about the steel. Gerber claims that this Flatiron comes with a hollow grind to make it more slicey, but if I pinch this blade and pull my fingers alongside the edge, I feel a striking difference in both the grind angles and also the grind lines. But even if I just look at the bevel, I can see that this edge is so asymmetrical, it is not even funny. And it also has some dull spots. Of course, the very edge could be corrected with a regrind, but in this case, I will not bother, because the rest of the grind angles also look disgusting. The MSRP of the Gerber Flatiron ranges between 50 and 70 bucks, which puts this garbage knife into a mid-range market with insane competition. And it actually has to go against some legit great products. First of all, I'd like to pull up my Concept Corvid XL with natural McCarthy scales, which also comes with a couple of smaller iterations, plus an insane amount of colors and materials. In the exact minute when I'm rolling this video, you can find deals and get this Corvid XL for about $58, which makes it a much better pick over the Flatiron. But let me show you another amazing contender, the MKM Isanzo, which pocket knife also has some significant cleaver DNA as well. Not to mention that this Italian wonder has some other variations with metallic grips and 4 different blade shapes that you can occasionally buy for as cheap as 65 bucks. In my opinion, on a market like this, better working mid-range pocket knives simply blow the Gerber Flatiron out of the water. I already reviewed these two, so if you want to learn more about them, come and check out my previous videos. Thank you for sticking around all the way, and I'll see you guys in the next one.